Real estate is about to go through the most brutal transformation in over a decade. And while most people are focused on mortgage rates and home prices, the smartest money in the world is making moves that nobody is talking about. Blackstone just invested $40 billion into real estate, and they are sitting on another $65 billion ready to deploy. The president even said it himself.
At the beginning of the year, we said real estate values are bottoming.
But on top of that, $936 billion in commercial real estate debt is coming due in 2026, which is the largest refinancing wave in history. And that pressure is creating distressed sellers at every level of the market. But while everyone else is fighting over scraps in the traditional real estate game, there is a completely different play happening at the top that almost nobody is talking about. And by the end of this video, you are gonna understand exactly what it is and how you can take advantage of it. So what does all of this institutional money movement actually mean for people like you and I? You see, when institutional money starts moving like this, it creates a ripple effect that touches every level of real estate. That $936 billion in debt coming due is mostly held by regional banks. And those banks are under massive pressure right now because they hold roughly 80% of all bank-held commercial real estate loans in this country. That makes them about 5 times more exposed than the big banks are. So when banks get squeezed, they start to tighten lending and calling in loans and forcing sales. And that pressure creates distressed sellers at every level of the market. From commercial property owners who cannot refinance, to landlords underwater on their mortgages, to homeowners who bought at the peak and now need to get out. NAR is forecasting home sales to jump 14% in 2026, and foreclosure filings already increased 14% in 2025. So the volume is definitely coming. But here's where the opportunity actually sits. Hundreds of billions in institutional dry powder are sitting on the sidelines, actively hunting for deals. Now, the problem for these institutional investors is that they cannot buy $200,000 single-family homes because the deal size is too small and it doesn't move the needle for a fund that's managing billions. So all of these distressed properties at the lower end of the market and motivated sellers who need to get out fast are where individual investors have the advantage. The big money is focused on commercial, which means the opportunity at the residential level is wide open. And if you know how to find these motivated sellers and connect them with buyers who have capital, you can make serious money without needing any of your own. Now, most people hear that and they think of just traditional wholesaling, right? Which is finding distressed properties, locking them up under contract, and assigning the contract to a buyer for a fee, typically $5,000 to $15,000. And I'm not saying that model doesn't work, because that's what I've been doing for the past 6 years of my life. The problem with that is the barrier to entry dropped to almost zero, which means that anybody with a phone could watch a YouTube video and start calling themselves a wholesaler. And when that happened, the market got flooded with people who actually have no idea what they were doing. They weren't watching my videos, that's for sure. But they're clogging up seller pipelines and burning through leads that serious operators could have closed. And all of that new competition drove marketing costs through the roof, because suddenly everybody was fighting for the same distressed homeowners. Pay-per-click costs went up, direct mail response rates went down, and the math that used to work stopped working for a lot of people. And right when the economics got tight, the regulations started hitting. Nearly a dozen states passed new wholesaling laws in 2024 and 2025 alone, and the restrictions are serious. Illinois hits you with a fine up to $25,000 per deal if you do more than one transaction per year without a broker's license. Oklahoma passed the Predatory Real Estate Wholesaler Prohibition Act, which carries fines of up to $5,000 per violation and even up to 6 months in jail for unlicensed activity. And Pennsylvania now requires a license and gives sellers a 30-day right to cancel the contract that cannot be waived, which means your deal can fall apart at the last minute even after you found a buyer. So the competition got brutal, the costs went up, and the legal landscape became a minefield. But here's what almost nobody realizes about what is actually happening in real estate right now. While all of that chaos was unfolding at the very bottom of the market, a completely different opportunity emerged at the top that almost nobody is talking about. And the economics are not even comparable. This is luxury wholesale, and it's based on the same fundamental concept, but has a completely different execution and outcome. In traditional wholesaling, you're fighting over distressed properties with 5 other wholesalers who are all calling the same sellers and making the same offers. And you're clearing maybe $10,000 to $20,000 on a good deal, assuming it actually closes, which is not guaranteed because deals fall apart all the time in traditional wholesaling. The sellers are often in difficult financial situations, which creates urgency, but also creates a lot of complications. The margins are tight, because you have to leave enough room for the buyer to make enough money on the flip or equity in their rental. And the close rate is unpredictable because if financing falls through, inspections reveal problems, buyers back out. But in luxury wholesaling, the entire game changes, because you're only working with properties valued at least $1 million and up. The sellers are sophisticated people, often selling a second or third home that they no longer need. And so they're not in financial distress, nor are they being pressured by circumstance. They are making a calculated decision to sell, and they understand exactly what the transaction looks like. So compared to the classic wholesaling game, most people know these sellers actually return your calls, they show up to appointments on time, they read the contracts, and they fully understand the terms. The professionalism is just completely different. Our buyers, on the other hand, these are not, fix and flippers. These are developers with deep pockets that are actively looking for properties that fit their development criteria. They're paying a premium for the right properties because they have so much margin on the back end of their projects that there's really nothing that they can buy on market. Your assignment fee on one luxury deal can be 5 to 10 times or even more than what you make in traditional wholesaling. And because almost nobody is operating in this space, you're not competing with the masses. The people who flooded into traditional wholesaling never even looked at luxury because they don't even know it's an option. They assumed that wholesaling meant just chasing distressed properties in rough neighborhoods, and that's exactly what they did. Meanwhile, the top of the market has stayed wide open. That means you can take a completely different approach to finding deals. So instead of mass marketing to compete with everybody else, you're using a targeted outreach to reach a smaller pool of higher quality prospects. And because those prospects are actually qualified, the close rate is actually significantly higher, which means when you get a deal under contract in luxury wholesaling, it actually closes because the buyers have the capital, the sellers are committed, and the transactions are clean. You're not dealing with a million different liens and other things on your Schedule B. But here's the part that really changed my perspective on this whole business model. And this is besides the fact that you get 10 times more money than you normally get in traditional wholesaling and for doing the same amount of work, but there's an ethical gray area that most people don't really talk about, right? You are offering sellers significantly less than what they could get on the open market. And no matter how you frame it, that is just a reality of how the business model works. Now, some sellers are fine with that because they need the speed, they need the certainty, but it can feel uncomfortable knowing that you're profiting from somebody else's difficult situation. However, in luxury wholesaling, this dynamic flips completely. You're actually able to offer sellers close to what they would net with a realtor because developers are paying premiums for these properties that fit their criteria. And so, sellers are making an informed decision to sell to a buyer who can close quickly without the hassle of listing on the market, dealing with showings, waiting for financing contingencies, and also certain disclosures and stuff, and hoping that the deal doesn't fall through. Everything about it is cleaner, and that's why I made the switch. Now, if you want to see the exact system our students are using to find and close these deals effortlessly, I'll leave a link below where you can apply and see if we have any spots open this month inside the Lux Blueprint. But the reason this opportunity is so wide open right now ties directly back to that macro picture I talked about in the beginning. All of that institutional money flooding into real estate is creating unprecedented demand for development opportunities, which means developers need land and they need properties they can tear down and build on, and they need them fast. But at the same time, the maturity wall is creating motivated sellers, and the rate environment is creating buying opportunities, so the deals are out there. And the developers are sitting on capital that they need to deploy before their fund timeline expires, so the money is ready to move. But here's a big gap. The developers do not have the time to source these deals themselves because they're focused on everything else: construction, permitting, project management, raising capital for their next projects. So they need somebody to bring them these opportunities, and they don't care to spend $100,000, $200,000 assignment fees to get them. And that's where luxury wholesalers come in. You become the deal sourcing arm for developers who have the capital ready to deploy. You find properties that fit their criteria, you lock them up under contract, bring the deals to the buyers who are actively looking to acquire them. The developers get a pipeline of opportunities without having to do the legwork, and you get paid handsomely for being the connector. And with NAR forecasting home sales up 14% in 2026 and Redfin predicting what they are calling the Great Housing Reset, the transactional volume is only going to increase. More sellers are entering the market, meaning more opportunities to find deals, and more capital chasing real estate means that there's no shortage of buyers ready to write checks. So the institutional money is moving, the sellers are emerging, and the developers are hungry. And for the first time in years, all of the pieces are lined up at the same time, creating a whole new real estate phase that most people are just absolutely not ready for. But seeing an opportunity and capturing it are two completely different things, and the difference comes from knowing how to move. You need to know how to identify the right properties, how to underwrite deals at the luxury level, and how to approach sophisticated sellers without sounding like every other wholesaler that are constantly being ignored. The luxury wholesaling is not the same game as traditional, and the learning curve can be very expensive if you're making mistakes on deals this size. But that $936 billion maturity wall I mentioned at the beginning is creating a distressed sellers right now, and at the same time, developers have fun timelines forcing them to deploy capital before the deadline hits. That combination is rare, and this is the exact reason this window is so wide open in 2026. But once that debt gets worked out and the capital gets deployed, the urgency on both sides disappears, and so this window tightens back up. So the question is whether you are going to watch this happen or you are actually going to be a part of it. And if you choose to be a part of it, that's exactly what we're helping our students with inside Lux Blueprint. The first thing we do is help you pick a market where developers are actively buying and the numbers actually work. Then we build out a marketing plan based on your budget and your time, so you're not wasting money on strategies that don't fit the situation. And the best part is, marketing for luxury is actually way cheaper than traditional wholesale. And what makes this program so different and valuable is that every deal you find, you can send it to my team. We'll underwrite it, we'll tell you if it's worth pursuing, and when it's ready, we'll bring the buyers directly to you. So you're not out here cold calling investors hoping somebody bites, because the buyers are already lined up. We've already got them and they're ready to move. So if you want to learn more about how this works and whether or not we'd be a good fit to work together, I put together a free training in the description below where I walk you how all of this works from start to finish in luxury wholesaling. So go below, watch the training, and I'll see you there.